Hello.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So I love this book. I like the title of the book a lot. Sick in the Head. You talk to so many different comedians. They're all very unique. Is there a common sickness?
There are two different types of comedians, I think. Some are driven by neuroses and pain. Some of them have a lot of rage or some inferiority complex that makes them want to work it out in front of people or get approval. And other comedians are just funny, and you spend your whole life going, how come nothing's wrong with that guy? Will Ferrell is like that. Steve Carell is like that. People who just seem just smart and sharp and witty, and you can never find the source of it.
In your book, you say Jimmy Fallon is like that. And the first thing you write about him is, I don't understand this guy.
Yes, it's hard to understand. And then in the interview, he talked a lot about how his parents, they were Irish, and they would throw these parties, and they would sing and tell stories. And he was talking about singing around the piano. And I thought, I can't even imagine my parents singing in a piano. Like, I had a very different experience of childhood. And so then I thought, well, maybe that's what The Tonight Show is. It's just a version of that party singing around the piano.
Is that endlessly fascinating to you, that people can approach comedy from two very different places?
Yeah, I'm always interested in why people do it, why they continue to do it, and what keeps refreshing them with new ideas and new energy to want to be funny. Because, sometimes I think, is comedy a great way of expressing our feelings about our life's journey? And other times I think, or is it just a way to avoid being completely honest and sincere? That you need this one filter where you make fun of it all because, you might just be too uncomfortable to just say how it feels.
But comedians seem, in many ways, the most honest. I thought that was interesting. You're saying comedians need a filter. There's so many comedians that are so honest and brave.
That's true, but you have to be willing to reveal yourself to do that type of work. But you are, making the joke that makes it okay, and that's the fascinating part about it. But it's also the part, I don't know if that is the last piece of distance between you and the comic, is the joke, or is that the essence of who they are?
I want to talk about these two categories of comedians. Who is the most miserable, neurotic comedian that you interviewed?
The most miserable? That's a very good question. Then I'd be calling out one of my friends and just saying, you're a miserable, miserable person. Well, I don't know if he didn't seem that unhappy, but the darkest comedian was this guy named Michael O'Donoghue. He wrote the movie Scrooged, and he was one of the original writers of Saturday Night Live, and all of his material was really, really dark. He wrote the first sketch on the first Saturday Night Live where it was like a lesson in how to speak English, and he says to the guy, repeat after me, I would like to feed your fingertips to the fishes, or something like that. And then he has a heart attack, and then John Belushi thinks he's supposed to do what he does, and then he has a heart attack, and then they say live from New York on Saturday night for the first time. And he was a very, very dark man who's no longer with us.
What about the other end of the spectrum? Who's the most well-adjusted comedian that you interviewed?
Well, the most well-adjusted person I interviewed I guess it's Seinfeld. We all debate whether or not he is well-adjusted. He might be the least well-adjusted or the most. You could debate it.
Because he's so emotionally detached. Is that why?
Well, I don't even know if it is emotional detachment. That's the tricky part. He seems very comfortable with his worldview and very comfortable with how he approaches his life and his work, and in a way seems happier than everybody else. So I don't know if it is detachment or for whatever reason he's just very comfortable with how he sees everything. I'm never comfortable with how I see anything. I always assume I'm living wrong, my spirituality is wrong or absent, I'm screwing up my kids. I'm constantly neurotic about the choices I'm making, and so I'm always amazed at how he feels like, he's doing a lot of things right. Yet he still knows it's a disaster, the way it is for everyone, but he seems comfortable.
I thought that spirituality conversation was so interesting with Seinfeld. There was one point where you guys disagreed completely.
Yes, yes.
Where he said, I'm very happy to be just a drop in the ocean. And you were very frankly like, I hate that idea.
Yes, the whole philosophy of, you feel better and more Zen-like if you think you're a part of everything and you're just one drop in the ocean. That makes me miserable. Like, I've tried to believe that. I've meditated on it. I've thought about it. But ultimately, I hate to say it, I'd rather be the ocean. I don't want to be one drop in it. I don't know why who would want to be one drop in it? But I'll keep trying.
Is that part of why you want to be funny? To be larger than life?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'm not sure how much of it, for me personally, is a need for attention. I was writing and I started directing. I really didn't expect people to ever know my name as a writer or a director. There are very few people who become famous as writers and directors. So it wasn't something I was going for or I expected. And so now it's hard for me to know. Or I could be fooling myself. I could have been an attention whore the entire time and created this. But
it's hard for you to go back and know why you wanted to be funny initially, why comedy captivated you.
Well, I understand why comedy captivated me, but I don't know if it wasn't really success that captivated me. I just wanted to be doing it. I wanted to be in the game. I loved comedians. I wanted to be around them. And the only way I could be around them was if I collaborated with them. And so I needed to be good enough to be allowed in these rooms and to be allowed to make these movies or to do stand-up. And that was the goal, was to be in the process with everybody. I didn't think, oh, I hope my movie does really well. I just thought, oh, I hope my movie does well enough so I don't get kicked out of the business, because I wanted to be part of this.
I've heard Louis C.K. say the exact same thing. He just wanted to be in the club.
Yes.
How much courage does it take to write your first joke, to take that first step to being in the club?
Well, it's terrifying. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with comedians, and my mom was a hostess at a comedy club one summer after my parents got divorced. And I always thought, why would she take that job? It's a terrible job. What could you pay someone to just seat people at a comedy club? And then I thought, maybe she did it for me. Maybe she knew I loved comedy, and that's the only reason why she took this job. She never said that to me, never intimated it at all, or just cosmically. She had a destiny to get me in that room. And so I really wanted to be a comedian, and I wanted to talk to comedians and ask them how to do it. So I started a radio show at my high school radio station, and the signal barely got out of the parking lot. But I would lie to everyone and say it was a real radio station, and I never said it was a high school radio station. And that was how I got people like Steve Allen and John Candy and Martin Short to do interviews with me. This is like in 1983, 1984. And it was because I wanted to be a comedian. I was afraid to admit it, but I was doing research to figure out how to do it. And then finally, senior year of high school, I started going to open mic nights at comedy clubs on Long Island. And it was hard because when you admit you want to be a comedian, it's the first step of attempting to do it. And usually you're terrible at it for a few months or years. So you have to say, I want to do this. Hey, check me out. Oh, by the way, I'm awful. And you have to be willing to suffer through a period of learning how to do it. It's literally like if someone handed you a violin, you're going to be bad for quite some time, and you may never play it well.
You have to be bad publicly.
Yes, you have to fail in front of people who've paid money to watch you suck.
I want to talk about that radio show you just mentioned. How did you get the courage to start calling up your comedy heroes, or at least their representatives?
I had a friend at the high school radio station who used to do interviews with rock bands. So this is in 1983. He'd go to the city and he would interview REM or Susie and the Banshees, people like that. And I thought, oh, maybe I could talk to comedians. I never thought, I'm so scared to do this. I thought, I can't believe there might be a way to get them to talk to me. And so even though I was scared to do it badly because I wanted them to like me, every time I interviewed somebody like Leno or Seinfeld, my secret thought was, maybe Leno wants to be my best friend. There's no one at school who really liked comedy. And so it felt like, if you're a chess player and everyone hates chess and there's a chess club out there and you just hope they'll let you join it, I wanted to have some connection with these people. And so I would show up at their door with this giant tape recorder from the AV squad, and they wouldn't know I was a high school student until they opened the door. And then they'd always give me a look like, oh, geez, you're a child. But they would do the interview. And I was so enthusiastic about comedy that they would have a good time talking to me because I clearly loved it so much.
You said almost without exception, they were gracious to you.
Always, always gracious. And then, I decided to, put all these interviews together. All the money goes to this charity, 826, which provides free tutoring and literacy programs for kids. Dave Eggers runs it. And I said, well, maybe I could do a bunch of new ones. And so I interviewed Jon Stewart, Louis C.K., and Amy Schumer, and Sarah Silverman, and Roseanne Barr. I did a whole bunch of people. And then I was addicted to doing interviews all over again. I started doing stand-up again about a year ago, and it was another opportunity to say, hey, how do you do it? But now I can say it to Louis C.K. and Chris Rock and say, how do you write jokes? Like, what's your process these days? And even though it's a book for charity, it was also a way for me to learn more.
You started in comedy as stand-up. Went behind the scenes, writing, directing, producing. Why the move?
There were just so many great people, and I was 24 when I stopped doing it, and I had been doing it for 7 years. But I was doing it with Jim Carrey and Adam Sandler and David Spade and Rob Schneider, and I just thought, I'm not as good as these guys, and I keep getting offered writing jobs, so maybe the universe is telling me this is where I'm supposed to be. But about a year and a half ago, I got jealous of how much fun Amy Schumer was having when we were making Trainwreck, and she's so hilarious. I thought, I want to have fun. I want to have more of the comedy fun. I'm tired of being in rooms alone with editors and stressing out about budgets. I want like the visceral part of this.
And you've gone back to stand-up. How's it been?
It's been really, really good. Because when I was a kid, I had nothing to say. I had no anger. I had no stories. I had no positions. And now that I'm 47 years old, I have a life worth of experience to turn into stand-up. So it's fun, and I have tons to write about. And it's been really hilarious for me.
You've had these amazing twists in your life and in your career. We talked about the definitive films you've made, and a lot of these interviews you spend talking about that amazing journey. I mean, you're reflecting with Jimmy Fallon, for example, on the fact that this is a small group of peers now that are the voice of comedy. Will that ever not be fascinating to you, that journey?
I'm always fascinated. That's why I made the movie Funny People. I'm just interested in why people are funny, what they get out of it, what their struggle is. And now, as a 47-year-old man, I'm interested in the older comedians and how they stay engaged. Jerry Seinfeld is as funny as ever. His stand-up is incredible. He has this show, Comedians in Cars, drinking coffee. And guys like James Brooks are, riotously funny. And I always look to people who are great and go, well, how do you stay connected?
Stay great? Yeah.
And one of the ways I thought was, I need to stay on stage. A lot of my favorite people stop performing live. Eddie Murphy doesn't perform live. Wouldn't it be great to have him, do a show, a stand-up show, and tell you what he made of this journey he's been on? And I mean, it would be incredible. And I think it's healthy for people. It's easy to get stale if you're successful and you just sit in your house. You really do have to stay out there, like a rock band. You have to be out there with the people.
Is there a common denominator there? Because a lot of the peers that you talk to in this book, you've known for a long time. You've all experienced this great success, and you're all trying to stay hungry.
Trying to stay hungry and trying to still have things that we care about, that we want to talk about. We all talk about, what else can we do? What else can we say? What kind of movie haven't we made? We're trying to stretch it out. That's why we all look to people like Neil Young and go, I love that he'll go robot one year, he'll go blues one year, he'll go country one year. You have to get in that mindset of taking chances and stretching. Because even if you're great, if you do the same thing, then people are going to just get bored of it and suddenly it's kind of lame.
Yeah.
So you do have to keep trying new things.
Finally, what are you still trying to figure out about comedy?
Well, it's a mystery. Every joke, you don't know if it'll work. So when we shoot a movie and there's a punchline, sometimes I'll shoot 6 different ones, because the great fun part about comedy is every joke is an experiment, and you never know when it will work and when it will bomb in your face.
The journey continues. Thanks, Judd.
Thank you so much.